I can kind of see kids are dealing with a lot more stuff than we did as children, you know. We played outside on our bikes, and I think kids do that now too, but with social media and pressures that they're having from, I think kids are having to grow up a little bit faster.
Right.
So I think jiu-jitsu really helps them manage the stresses that they have throughout a day to day. Like you said, just breathe.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Sign of Good Health podcast. Today I've got my friend and former MMA instructor, Reine, with me. He runs Origin Jiu-Jitsu. So today we're going to talk about the aspect of teaching kids and kind of passing on your values to the next generation. So Jesse, can you start off with talking about how a kids class differs from an adult class?
Yeah. So, you know, for my kids class, as opposed to the adult class, I focus on a lot more activity, I guess, with kids because sometimes their parent will just bring them in, drop them off, and they need an outlet for a lot of their energy that they have, you know, and things like that. So what I do with the kids class as opposed to adult classes, I teach a little bit less technique and just more drilling. You know, I'll teach one movement, but then I let them go so they can kind of burn that energy out and they have an outlet for some of their, you know, awkwardness and things like that. And for me, the kids class just is booming because it's a place for them to kind of express themselves. You know, that's how I feel about it anyway.
Okay. So when I was a kid, my dad was coaching baseball and football, and this was more for my brother, not myself, but he told me about like sometimes he had kids that weren't wanting to be there, but their parents would drop them off as kind of like a babysitting thing. So have you had to deal with that kind of challenge?
I think initially when they first start, you usually get the kid's very shy, doesn't really know what to do or anything like that, because they're not there because they're so much interested and they don't know the value of jiu-jitsu yet, you know. So I think we run into that mostly when the first time they come through the door. Once they meet everybody, line up in class, start going through the routines, they get a lot more comfortable. And I think that's where you get more of the pushback, is just because they're uncomfortable in the beginning. Mm-hmm. So what's important for me is to get down on their level. You know, instead of speaking to a child from up here and they're down here, you're always standing over them. Hey, I get down to their level and ask them questions, get to know them a little bit, get them comfortable. And then second later, man, they're running, they're smiling, they're having fun, learning arm bars and things. But initially you do run through that on their first day.
Yeah. So we probably should have started with this. Can you just take a little bit to explain jiu-jitsu as opposed to like karate or whatever for the audience who may not know?
Yeah. So it's kind of weird. You can almost pull it up on Google or Wikipedia and it'll come up and give you all the explanation. So I can kind of repeat that for people, but to me, as we were speaking earlier, I like jiu-jitsu mainly as a combat art because it deals with, I think, some of the more common things, especially for kids, is grabbing, you know, headlocks and somebody trying to take you down to the ground or hold you or things like that. So to me, it's a little bit more applicable to a real life situation. Mm-hmm. Of course, it's an art that's based 100% in controlling somebody's movements and their positioning. And you get the option to escalate it. But to me, jiu-jitsu is about de-escalation, control. You don't have to injure somebody. Of course, we do choke holds and arm locks and things like that to try to get somebody to submit or tap out or give up in a fight. But I teach a lot of my kids, you know, that doesn't have to be their first go-to move is to injure somebody. You could just hold somebody on the ground, you know, and control the situation until a parent or an older person or a teacher comes to solve the situation for them. You know, to me, I think that's what makes jiu-jitsu very special.
Yeah, that's definitely an aspect I really very much enjoy, is that like I can just kind of hold a guy down and don't actually have to hurt him, but I have that option, like you said.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
and you can just be
And
like, are you done? You done?
exactly.
'Cause-
And to me, we were speaking a little bit earlier about we're able to train at a higher pace. You know, we could get a little bit closer to 100%
Mhm.
physical, you know, beating the crap out of each other a little bit, as opposed to like a karate. You have to pull your punches, you have to pull your kicks a little bit with your training partners in a training session so that you don't get concussions and certain injuries. Where in jiu-jitsu, we're able to pressure test our movements a lot more. It's a lot closer to a reality, you
Right.
know, because it's safer. And in that way, we're able to know what works and what won't work in more of a reality situation.
Yeah, and I think that that helps a lot with like when a kid does get into a situation and they've been doing the jujitsu style stuff, it's not as scary or foreign because they've been in those high pressure situations as opposed to if they've just been doing like forms or striking pads or whatever. It's like
Absolutely.
it's this guy's moving
Absolutely.
around so much. Like
Yeah. We do it a day in and day out. You know what I mean? So they're able to think clear. You know, they're a lot less stressed out because
mhm,
what's the old saying Hickson has is learn to get comfortable in uncomfortable situations. And that's what jiu-jitsu does for you, because you've never been so uncomfortable until like a 280-pound guy's on top of you.
yep.
Now what are you going to do, buddy? You know, that's, you know, that there's nothing that will train that scared or that stressed out situation to me like jiu-jitsu does. It's in your face right now, you know, learn to deal with it.
Yeah. Whether it's a sweaty armpit or
Hairy chest in your face. It's like, okay,
yeah.
I'm uncomfortable. You gotta learn to shrimp. You gotta turn. You gotta move. You know, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and like even like when I've gone to the dentist or whatever, it's like and I've had them doing something and it's just I just focus on like from jujitsu I learned like okay, can I breathe? Okay, I can do that. Like and like I've had some of the people compliment me like you're really calm. Like, oh, I'm checking if I can breathe, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. And going back to the kids, I think that's an important thing. You know, it's hard. I'm older now, but I can kind of see kids are dealing with a lot more stuff than we did as children. You know, we played outside on our bikes, and I think kids do that now too. But with social media and pressures that they're having from, I think kids are having to grow up a little bit faster.
Right.
So I think jujitsu really helps them manage the stresses that they have throughout a day to day. Like you said, just breathe, think it through. You know, you don't have to act as emotionally about it. You know, you can use almost the techniques you learn in jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
you know.
I've actually had that conversation a few times with people at work. It's just like with my journalism job, people get emotionally heated trying to do stuff last second, or like the show is going on and there's a fire or whatever, and just like okay, there's a problem. How do we deal with this? Not name calling and screaming and whatever, and it's just kind of separating emotions. So it's
I think everybody should do jiu-jitsu. What's the common thing we say is, man, I wish I did this when I was younger. I wish I would have found this when I was younger, you know. So it's amazing uh, having kids come in, and I'm really looking forward to see the impact as they start to get into adults and, you know,
mhm.
things like.
So you touched on a little bit with so I want to have you talk about the value that kids get from martial arts. So you talked about like burning off energy, and we talked about like emotional control and stuff. Like, are there any other values or benefits that kids are learning?
Yeah, you know, I think learning to be coachable, you know, to be coached by somebody is really important. Being able to take criticism is an important thing that we don't think about a whole lot. We think about jujitsu being a fighting combat art and just learning how to beat somebody up, but in a class setting, you have to be able to take criticism from your coach and find weaknesses and get better. You know. Um, of course, you know, now that we're living in like COVID is in our face all the time, being healthy. learning to try to live a healthier lifestyle, get better sleep, eat better, train, work out, and things like that. I think that's a benefit that kids are learning early on, and you hear about obesity problems in the United States and things. So getting your kids out on the mat to work out is extremely important.
Yeah.
And then of course the self-defense. Self-defense is an important aspect to have. I remember getting bullied on the schoolyard, and that stuff kind of stays with you a little bit. So empowerment, learning to stand up when you know something's wrong, you know, a kid on the schoolyard is bullying you or something like that. Taking action, I think, is an important thing, and it's builds that confidence level.
Yeah. And there's a line from, I don't remember who said it, but it's in like the Fightland documentary. And it's like, most guys get into martial arts not to dominate, but to avoid being dominated.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's not really what drew me up right away. I thought I was going to go learn how to beat everybody else up, you know, but then it did shift. I started to understand it's more about not getting beat up, you know. Absolutely.
Well, and from what I've seen in myself and I guess others, but definitely for myself, is like when I started doing MMA, like there's just something, I'm guessing it's just like a posture, body language, kind of self-confidence, whatever, that just, you know, that alone makes people not want to pick at you. So it's just,
Sure. Sure.
it's
You
like,
know, the weird things after training is maybe it's a paranoia. I hope it's not paranoia or it comes off paranoia, but I'm always kind of scanning crowds and yeah, walking with a purpose. Not, you know, I do feel a lot more confident, and probably that does show to other people too. You know, I don't mess with that guy. He looks way too confident for me, man. I'm not gonna take his milkshake today, you know, or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're on the shorter side too, so it's like,
Yeah, I'm 140 pounds, you know, well, I'm not too short. I take offense to that.
no, it's
No,
been
I'm like
5 years.
5'9", 5'10", 140 pounds though. But yeah, if I was gonna be the victim, I mean, that would be the victim. You know what I mean? Shorter, smaller, skinnier guy, looks like a nerd, you know.
Yeah, sorry, it's just I shouldn't have said you're shorter. It's like
Uh,
everybody is relative to me, you know. Like,
oh yeah, 'cause you're what, six,
three.
5, something like that? Yeah, you're a
I'm
tall guy.
6'3". My brother is like 6'7", so
Yeah, he's even taller. That's right. Yeah.
he,
But no, I remember going to like rock concerts and stuff like that. I couldn't see over the crowd. So you're absolutely right.
um, so let's see. Oh, I had one. Okay, so we talked about like shyness and the self-confidence and stuff. So what kind of other challenges do kids face as they're kind of learning? I mean, you talked about being coachable, but is there other stuff?
Yeah, you know, I think some of the things that kids have to manage is how to get along. So kids can be kind of brutal at times, you know, if they don't accept a certain kid because they look a certain way or something like that, they're forced to kind of work together. I think that's an important aspect of the class setting too, is you can't really have your little cliques and your pods. You're generally going to have those anyway, but we rotate. Everybody works with everybody. So I think they get a lot more accepting of some people's um, life backgrounds or something. Hey, you come from the wrong side of the tracks. It doesn't matter here, you know, on the jiu-jitsu floor. I don't care where you come from. You're going to be treated the same way as anybody else. So I think the kids pick up on that and they start to be more accepting of different kinds of people. But initially in the beginning, you will get that as like, oh, I got to work with this person or something like that. And they learn early on that oh, this person that you look down on can kick your butt. You know what I mean? So they get a different respect for each other.
Okay. So, and if this question's outside your wheelhouse, that's fine. I was just gonna ask about your thoughts with, do martial arts like complement or fit in with other sports, or do kids need to focus more on one thing at a time?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I have multi-sport kids in here. Some of them lose interest in some of their other activities and they go, hey, I just want to do jujitsu. Because jujitsu it does take a lot from you. You have to commit kind of it. You hear about jujitsu lifestyle or whatever, because it invades a lot of part of your day-to-day routine. I think about jujitsu all day long, but I do still have kids that play multi-sports, and I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it helps them for their discipline, goal setting, things like that outside of just jujitsu in other sports too. Um, again, learning how to become coached by somebody, staying cool under pressure. I think that all will benefit other sports and other areas of your life too, of course, in your work, in careers that you go on to someday. But I absolutely do believe that the jiu-jitsu training that we do will impact and make them a better athlete overall because of some of those aspects. Now, a hockey player isn't going to have to shrimp down the ice or anything like that, but in some of the other aspects, getting in better shape, being able to be coached, setting goals, the drive to be better, I think that will impact a lot of area, for other sports as well.
Yeah, and one thing with that, like when I was teaching a coworker friend of mine about just basic focus mitt punching, and he told me that he had a lacrosse background, and I noticed that compared to other people I've worked with, he had that built-in aggression, like he wasn't afraid to like get in there. I don't know if you've seen kind of that dichotomy.
Yeah, I think what that is too a lot is athletes aren't afraid to fail. You know what I'm saying? So they know that when they start a new program or a new workout routine or something, it's not going to be easy right away. So they're not afraid to just get into the grind. You know what I'm saying? Where some people that aren't used to that sort of activity are really timid to whack the mitt or get on the mat or something like that. Where you see a lot of athletes, even um, basketball players. We get kids that play basketball and stuff like that. They're not afraid to look silly, because they've been there before.
Yeah. So do you think that ego thing is that something that kind of gets instilled at a more adult level, or does it happen with kids too?
If I understand your question correctly, do we get that ego problem as children or adults? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
I think it probably does start as a child, but you see it a little bit more in adults. The kids, I think, are generally happier and things like that, but adults, they have a lot more things they have to worry about, like their careers and their job or their bills and things like that, where adults, are kind of afraid to look stupid or look down. Oh, you don't know this, or you're not good at that. Where I don't think a kid has that problem so much. I think it's mainly in adults. You get that ego of not prepared to look stupid doing something. Yeah.
Um, so another question. So you touched on this a little bit earlier. So when you're teaching kids techniques, like how do you balance like perfecting or learning the technique versus actually keeping it the kids still having fun,
Yeah, that's a tough one. So like with my adult program, I can dive deeper into details and the whys, and I can talk a little bit more. I try to keep it to a minimum, but with the kids, you don't want to sit in front of them and just talk all day about a certain movement, because one, it's going to be over their head and they're going to get bored and they're going to start looking at the wall or picking their nose or looking down at the mat or something like that. So with the kids, I try to give them the most important details that'll just get their bodies into the position. And it's almost just enough information for them to kind of come up with problems.
Sure.
So you give them one or two details. All right, guys, go practice it. And then you walk around the room and work more individually on, okay, this is why it's not working. It's looking good. You're halfway there. But remember how I moved my foot here? Did you see I moved? No, I didn't see that. Okay, well, move your foot here. And then all of a sudden they're excited again. And then you can walk around the room and give
And after that,
smaller
be 5 more
details.
minutes of focus. And
Yeah, but I could sit in the center of the room and explain every little detail about a movement and then say, guys, ready? And then it's just like, uh, okay, go train. And they don't even know what to do because there's too many details.
Mhm.
So with the kids, you have to keep it fun and it active and moving, but still, one or two details at a time, And then the other thing that I try to do with kids is it's kind of a trick is to teach principles and concepts without them knowing they're learning principles and concepts. So we have certain games that we play like King of the Ring or something. We just set it up where you have to push a kid out of the circle. Oh, it's just fun. It's just pushing for them. But what they're learning is base, how to move and shuffle their feet and move their bodies correctly. They have no clue they're learning that stuff. You know what I mean? I'm not telling them, but they're getting experience by getting pushed back, pushed. They think it's fun, and it is fun, but they're learning very, very important principles about footwork and lowering the hip and leaning in and moving their bodies without them even knowing. So there's many things I like to do with games, even a simple game of like tug of war. Learning how to shift their weight to pull. They just think they're playing tug of war, you know what I mean? But really, they're learning very important concepts about base and footwork. So those are some of the things I like to do with the kids. Where adults, I'm paying you to tell me exactly what to do. Give me all the details, and it's a little bit easier to do that with adults because they're more patient. Um, a kid, man, they'll be running out of the room if you're talking too long. So you got to keep that active.
Yeah, and I remember sometimes watching a technique with whoever, and it's like just okay, can you do it again? And then I would have to like watch. Okay, this time I'm gonna watch this leg just because there's so many steps. It's just like so
Jiu-jitsu, it does it. There's so many little things like, hey, he pointed his toe 3 degrees to the right. And really it probably matters, but in the beginning it doesn't matter. So you just got to try to watch the few. Well, if you have a good instructor, they're going to really focus on the few things that get you there, and then we'll talk about turning the toe 3 degrees north or something. You know what I mean?
yeah.
With a kid, you can't do that. They have no clue what you're talking about. It's way over their head. So you get creative with kids.
Yeah. So this will be the last question. So just tell me your thoughts on like, and it could come from the kids or it could come from the parents, like chasing belts or I want to get the black belt versus just kind of more, I don't know if internal growth or whatever is the right word, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. Luckily, I haven't had to deal with that a whole lot. I mean, at least it's not voiced a whole lot to me because, I was a brown belt just recently promoted to black belt. So I was not promoting anybody. I didn't feel comfortable promoting. I did put some stripes on some kids' belts but I called Rodrigo. I said, hey, I got this kid that's doing awesome. Can I put a stripe on his belt? So a lot of my kids are probably a lot higher level than what their belt shows them, but they keep training. There's not a whole lot of, oh, how come my kid's not a black belt? He's been there for 2 years,
Mhm.
you know? Um, I don't have to deal with that a whole lot. I mean, in the other way though, is they do need to set the goal to get to the next belt. I mean, we have to have that structure. And that's one thing I'm working on actually as we speak is putting together requirements for each different belt, like the gray belt. And that's the first one is getting some of my kids up to the gray belt. Because one, they deserve it. They've been working hard and they need to know, okay, how can I get to the next level? What is required of me?
Mhm.
Um, So I don't think that a lot of my parents have a big issue with it's not happening fast enough. I think they understand that with jujitsu, there is a lot more detail, there is a lot more time, there's a lot more involved with it, that they are very patient. They're patient, but um, putting in the belts, it's important for goal setting and getting to that. What do I got to do to get to that next belt?
Okay. Yeah, and I think that's a good place to wrap up because that applies for adults too with
Oh,
like,
absolutely. Myself included. I used to get hung up on that where, oh, what I want the next thing because we always want the next, but it happens when it happens, and
yeah, because like
it happens when it's supposed to happen.
yeah, because like towards the end of my time at Detroit Lakes, like the instructor was talking about this belt promotion ceremony, and I was like pushing myself really hard. It's like I'm gonna get that brown belt, like, and it didn't happen. He gave me a stripe or something, but it's
Sure.
like part of me was like relieved because it's like when I do go to another gym, it's like I want to be able to represent the brown belt well when
You'll
it.
get a target on your back a little bit. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've had that many times in my life too, where I thought I did really well and I'm doing really good, and then I didn't get a promotion or something like that. And you'd be lying if you didn't say, "Oh, you're a little disappointed." But for me, that just kind of made me buck down a little bit harder and drive a little bit more. And when it happened, you at the end of the day, for me personally, I realized why it took so long because I had to really achieve that next position. I don't want to get promoted and then someday grow into that promotion.
For sure.
When I get the promotion, I want to already be there. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I want to be at the upper end of that position
Hmm.
by the time I get there. I don't want to, hey, you're a nice guy. Here's your blue belt. And then a year later, you actually get the blue belt skills. No way. When I get blue belt, I want to already have been a blue belt for a while.
For sure. Yeah.
But
So, Jesse, do you want to just wrap up with kind of giving your spiel about your school if people want to check you out?
yeah, so we've been here at this location. I guess you can't see it through here, but it's a massive location for about a year in Rice Lake, Wisconsin. Origin Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You can check us out on Facebook. We post a lot of videos and kind of things that we do here at the school. Um, Upcoming events like tournaments and things like that. So yeah, if you're ever around in Rice Lake, Wisconsin, look us up and come train.
Yeah, and I've definitely seen the tug of war videos of Jesse versus like 5 kids.
Yeah, yep. Now we're getting like 30 kids per class, so I don't fight them so much anymore. They'll pull me across the room. My base isn't that good anymore.
So thanks for being on the show. And
Thanks, Alex. No, it's an honor for me. Thank you so much.
yeah, good to talk with you. And tune in, guys, for the next one. Thanks. Bye.